of life. Circle of life. Yes, yes, yes. You know, every month we do a different theme, and it comes from our home office, and I have the option of using it or not using it, but I love it, and it works really well with what I talked about last week, so I brought it forward into this week. And the idea of circles of life. So we're talking about unity and cherishing the human family. And okay. Yeah, so today I want to talk about that in light of living your best life. It kind of spins off of the talk that I did last week, where, well, let me just get a little bit of my background and my vision, what my mission is for myself. First of all, my own personal mission is to live my biggest, best life possible.
Yes.
I don't know if that goes for any of you, right? But you know, like when I'm done, when it's over and done, to say I used everything, I made the most of what I was given, I made a difference, like that's what I'm about, you know? And so I think that's what you all are probably about as well. And so I use my particular gifts to pass along information. So how does that work? And I had the good fortune, I won't say it was good fortune, I think it was part of the plan, you know, the divine plan for my life, that I worked as a hospice social worker for some years, and it was formative time in my life. I was a young woman, maybe 25, 26 years old. The week that I got the job, I found out I was pregnant with my first child. And I wasn't even sure it was covered by insurance. That's how new it was. I thought they would say it was a pre-existing condition and they weren't going to cover it. So here I was going into people's homes as they were at the end of their lives, carrying new life. And it was really, it was trippy. It was really an interesting experience to have. But I realized in that experience that people who are at the end of their lives have a lot to teach about living. Right? People who are dying can teach us an awful lot about living. And kids can teach us a lot about living. I think what it is that they're both so close to the source, right? Kids, when they come in, they're still, you know, coming from that realm into this realm, they still have that connection. And as people are getting ready to go back, you know, to that realm, it seems like the veil between worlds gets a little thinner. And so I feel like there's a closeness for people who are dying, you know, that they are actually closer to source. So I think to look at those two groups and say, how is it that they are living? What can they teach us about living our best lives? And so that's where the circle comes back. And you know, people as they get older tend to, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, or if you're in it, but revert back to how we were as kids. Anybody notice that?
Yes.
Like the things that you think about saying when you're in your 20s and 30s, should I say this? What are people going to think? It just comes out of your mouth. You get to an age where it's like, you know, if I don't say it now, I'm not gonna say it, so I'm gonna just say it. And it doesn't always come out in the best way and all of that. But anyway, so I'm talking about living your best life and what is it that children and dying folks have to teach us about living. So I've just broken it down into a couple of simple things. If you want to live your best life, and when you get to the end of it, know that you gave it all you got. Because in that time of seeing people at the end of their lives, as you can imagine, there were the ones that went out kind of kicking and screaming or not in the best way, and there were ones that left, you know, where you got the sense that they were complete, and there was peace, and there was peace in their families. So I want to share some of those stories with you. So the first thing about living your best life is understanding that your life is about your relationships, right? It's not about the stuff. We spend so much time in our 20s and 30s and 40s, and it's all about accumulating and having the house and the car and this and the that. And you know what? You don't take any of it with you, right? None of it. And so I think it behooves us to spend most of our time and energy in cultivating the relationships that are important to us, right? Our friends, our families, our loved ones, the people that are going to be around you in those last moments. You know, assuming that you go that long. I mean, some of us don't have that opportunity, let's call it, right? To know, like people in hospice have a diagnosis and somebody says you have less than 6 months. But for it really could be any of us anytime, right? We don't all get that kind of a diagnosis. So knowing, what's important, your relationships. This was brought home to me in one of the families that I worked with. Now this family they'd been funeral directors. Dad owned a funeral home, and so it was the family business. And the father in this family had taken care of his wife for many years. She was sickly and needed a lot of assistance, and he was the caregiver. He ran the business, he did everything. So now he gets a diagnosis, a dual diagnosis. He's got kidney failure and finds out that he's got Alzheimer's at the same time. So his doctors tell him, you can do chemotherapy if you want to, it's not chemo, dialysis would keep him alive for longer. But his decision was for what? Basically, so now my wife will have to take care of me. And that was just like not, that wasn't on his bucket list. So essentially, he said, I'm not going to do dialysis, and the doctor could pinpoint, say, well, you're going to last maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. It's time to call in the family. So when they called their family from all corners of the United States, everybody showed up. They lived in a trailer, so picture this. The guy is dying. His hospital bed, we brought from hospice, put it in the middle of the living room in this little trailer. And I think they had 4 or 5 kids that came from all over the place, and the grandkids. And everyone just surrounded this man as he was making his transition. And it was like a party. And I'd never seen anything like this. I mean, I was raised Catholic, and, it's a very different thing when people are at the end of their lives in that tradition. There's a lot of, pain and suffering and crying. And not to say that they didn't do all of that, but it was really like a celebration. And I said, how are you able to be like this? I asked the kids, who were probably, I'm saying they were his kids, but they were probably themselves in their 30s and 40s. And they said, if this is what Dad wants, who are we to stand in the way of that? They were just very clear, very direct. The man at a point was just wanting to make his transition. He was in pain, he was suffering, and every time I'd go see him, he's like, do you know any ideas how much longer this is going to be? And I said to him one time, well, if it makes you feel any better, you look a lot worse than last time I saw you. And he was so excited. They were so happy about that. But it was a party. It was a party, and they sent him out right, and that just stayed with me. It stayed with me. How important our relationships are. When we're born into this world, our children, completely helpless, right? Of all the animals in the animal kingdom, I think we're helpless the longest, right? Other animals have their babies, they're up and walking and looking for food. Here, kids are in their 20s and still hanging out at home, right? Waiting on people to give them their food and, take care of them, right? So that's a thing, right? Full circle of life here. So live your best life. Remember, it's about your relationships and not your stuff. Second thing that's really important to know about living your best life is that idea of being true to yourself. Right? Like if you're not living your life now, what are you doing? What are you doing? And when are you going to live your life? Right? When are you going to live your life? And not your mom's life, or what your dad wanted for you, or what your kids are expecting from you, or whatever you think society wants from you. Be true to yourself. Emerson said, and Emerson, for those of you who are not familiar with this teaching, Emerson was one of the Transcendentalists, and this movement, New Thought, came out of the Transcendentalist movement. So he's a big name for us. He said, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment there is. Right? And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. We have a lot of independent thinking people here who I think understand this idea of being true to yourself, and the pain that happens in our lives when we're not. As people are approaching the end of their lives, this is the kind of stuff they're looking at. It's not so much, it's not the things that you do that people regret. It's the things that we don't do. Right? so recipe for a life well lived. Do the things you want to do. Be true to yourself. Live your best life. Tip number 3, express yourself. Express yourself. The bitterest tears shed over graves are for words left unsaid and deeds left undone. Right? If there are people that you have things you need to express to, love, gratitude, all of those things, do it. What are you waiting for? Right? You may not get the chance to say those things that need to be said. Don't wait till you have a diagnosis. I suggest that people, gratitude is one of the things that can help people just through life. You want to live a good life, live a life of gratitude. And I encourage people, you can make an actual practice of gratitude by thanking people in your life. Like maybe just a person a day or a person a week that maybe from your past or someone who's done something special for you, to just take a moment, pick up the phone, write them a little note, do something to let them know how much you appreciate them. Right? Make it a practice and see how it turns your life around. Right? So the people who die the difficult deaths, the people who come to the end and are just really in a tough spot are the people with unfinished business. Right? People who have things unsaid, things undone, dramas and traumas with people that they haven't cleared up. Those are the people that are hurting. So you want to avoid that. For me, I think of it as like a spiritual cleansing, that I do for myself every day. Like everybody brushes their teeth every day, right? You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth before you go to bed. Do you think about, before you go to bed at night, is there anything that I need to release? Right? Do I need to cleanse my spirit, my soul, my mind, and release the stuff that doesn't serve you? And give a gratitude for the things that are working and the things that are beautiful in your life and the people that you love. And then go the next step and actually write it out and let them know how much you care. Right? Express yourself. We know the kids have no trouble expressing themselves. Right? I know these don't. My little people have no problem whatsoever saying whatever is on their mind. And they're very direct about it. Not ever to hurt anybody, but they're just speaking what is. I can remember my son, we were in a restaurant one time and the the service was really slow, and we were all just, all of us adults just kind of tapping our forks and, making snide comments and all these kinds of things. And the waitress comes over and asks the table, is there anything I can do for you? And my son, who was about 4 years old, said, you could bring our food. Which any of the adults could have said, but just coming out of a kid's mouth, it was just like, of course, yeah, you can bring our food. if you're not bringing that, then really there's nothing else you can do. So express yourself. We can all take a few notes from little people and just say what is so. We don't have to put the judgments with it. Right? We just say what is so for us. Express yourself. Express the love. Express the joy. Express yourself. I'm looking at some people here that I know are very, very self-expressed, and it makes me feel good to see that. To see that we dress the way we want to dress, and we live the kinds of lives that we want to live, and not be what we think we need to be for other people. It's one of the things I love about this movement in particular. Right? We've been doing marriage or commitment ceremonies for people before it was legal, for lesbians and gay people to get together in relationship. We, as a movement in New Thought, have been doing that for years. So express yourself. Next tip to living your best life now is probably the biggest one, is just to be present. Is to be present. And what does that mean? To be in the moment. Right? To live here and now. How much time are we spending thinking about the past? If it was a percentage-wise, right? Think about your life. You could think about the past, you can think about the present, you can think about the future. How much of your time do you think you spend thinking about the past? Coulda, shoulda, woulda. I'm hearing 90% over here. Anybody else? Yeah. And what are we doing with that? If you're thinking about the past, Can you do anything to change
Nope.
what has been, what has done? Absolutely nothing. So what are you doing with your attention and your power? Wasting it, right? I love this quote by Maya Angelou. If you must look back, do so forgivingly. If you must look forward, do so prayerfully. However, the wisest thing you can do is to be present in the present gratefully. Gratefully. If you're looking at your past and you're sitting in regret, coulda, shoulda, woulda, you're wasting your time. If you look at the past instead and say, what is the lesson that was there for me? What can I learn to go forward and release it? Then you make good use of your time. Right? Now, the future. Okay, how many of you are spending, if you're not 90% in the past, that gives you about 10% for the rest of your life. How many of you are the other way, thinking all the time about the future?
30.
Right? 30% in the future, okay. 70% in the future. And as we know, right? So where's the future?
Not here.
It's not here. We don't even know. We don't know. The future it could be an illusion, right? For any one of us. And I don't say that to be morbid. I say that to just keep that fact in front of you, that your time here in physical form is limited. That's what we talked about last week, right? Once you put that squarely in front of you and can come to terms with that, then you can take it off the table. Then you don't have to look at it all the time, but just, my time is limited here. Do I want to spend the limited time that I have in anger? Do I want to spend that limited time in resentment? Do I want to spend that limited time in fear? Right? People who are dying, when they really get it, they know better. Right? Because every moment they spend in one of those negative emotions or in regret or pain and all of that is a moment robbed of the present, of the time that they can be in relationship with the people that they love, appreciating beauty in life. Right? Don't rob yourself of your presence and your time and your moment. Kids can't live anywhere else but the present. Right? My grandchildren keep me very, very grounded. I may come home and think I'm going to do this, this, and this, and the kids are there, and the kids demand attention right here, right now. Right? There's nothing else that's going to get done, right, except tending to that child. And I love it. I love it. I mean, that little one right there, if you're not holding that child, she's screaming. And that's what you do. So you hold her and you be present and enjoy that experience and the love and grandma needs that time to just kind of be at peace and relax. And I might not do it as much if they weren't there. Right? So it's a great reminder. Children teach us to be in the present, to live in the now. And that's where your life is happening. The last tip about living your best life, it's all about love. It's all about the love that we give and the love that we feel, the love that we receive, the love that is swirling in and through and all around us. I mentioned last week that idea of the spaces between. We talked about that we don't notice the space between stuff, right? There has to be space between us as human beings, or we'd be right up on top of each other, right? We need space. There has to be space between your thoughts so that you can recognize each thought individually. There has to be space between words. If there wasn't the space between the words, they would all run together, right? So there are spaces between everything. And then when you start building it out, like the science of it, right? The science of it. It looks like all of these things are physical objects, but when you start to break them down, right? The objects are made of molecules. You break down the molecules, they're made of neutrons and electrons, and what happens when you break those down? And you keep breaking it down smaller and smaller, and scientists know that there's a point where there's like nothing there. There's nothing. There's the space in between is everything. What's in that space in between? You ever think about that? Is that where God is? Is that the God essence? And maybe it's another word for love. Maybe that's what's in the space in between. So cultivate that, think about that. And maybe allow more space in between for yourself so you can tap that infinite presence from which everything comes. Right? Everything comes from that no-thingness, from the nothingness, from the spaces between. So love and be loved. What if that space in between is all love? And you could tap that infinite power and presence by being that love. And we also know, metaphysically, that where we focus, where we put our attention, is going to grow in our awareness. Right? If you're thinking about the things you're grateful for, lo and behold, you're going to find after a while that there's more things to be grateful for. When you give and you focus on love, and that's where your attention is, guess what? There's going to be more of it. You're going to be more aware of it. It's going to be just part of who you are. So love and be loved. Recipe for a good life. I don't know if there is anything else. Can anyone think of anything else? Right? Be present, be loved, express yourself. Do what you came here to do. And so I'm going to leave you with this affirmation. It's a short one. But something about affirmations, for those of you especially who are new, not be familiar to this. We write the affirmation as the statement of what it is we want to see manifest. So you may be sitting in your seat right now saying, I'm not living my best life right now. I know I'm not in the job I need to be in. I probably need to not be in this relationship, or whatever that thing happens to be. And so you look at a statement like that and it feels like a lie. Okay, can anyone relate to that? Mm-hmm. Right, as you're in the class and you're thinking to yourself, well, I need to manifest more money, and suddenly you're saying, I am abundant, I have every resource I need, and you're thinking to yourself, but that's not really true. It feels like a lie. But what you're doing is you're claiming it. You're claiming it. Just like anything else that you do, that you create, you have a blueprint for it, right? You don't build a house without having a blueprint first. It becomes the form that you build around. So even if that doesn't feel like it's true, let it be the form that you're building. Okay, that's what affirmations do. You state it in the present, you make it short, you make it something you can remember, and then you start seeing yourself in that. Okay, so if you're not feeling like you're quite there yet, know that you can be. And if this is an affirmation that resonates for you, put it up on your refrigerator, put it on your mirror, and just say it to yourself. I am living my best life here and now. Right? And even if it's not completely yet, you will draw all of the pieces you need to yourself so that you can actually feel and believe this and claim it as true for you. Does that help anybody? Mm-hmm. Make sense? Okay, very good. So I'm going to say it. I am living my best life here and now. And I invite you to say it with me. I am living my best life here and now.